Flash bulbs popped like thousands of tiny lightning bolts tearing through the Monaco night. I stood frozen center stage, feeling the fabric of my fireproof racing suit tightening around my chest. It did not feel like armor. It felt more like an expensive, custom-tailored shroud. Around me, the world was spinning in a drunken haze of wealth and flattery. Crystal glasses clinked together, sounding sharper than metal grinding against asphalt. They called this the party of the century, the launch of the Visionary X electric supercar, a masterpiece of aerodynamics and technology, or so they claimed. But to me, it was just a glossy coffin worth $2 million. I took a deep breath, trying to filter out the heavy perfume and expensive cigar smoke to find some clean air. But there was nothing clean here. Everything was coated in the taste of greed. "Smile, Dominic." A low voice resonated right in my right ear. I did not need to turn around to know who it was. Adrian Sterling. The man with a smile as meticulously polished as the diamonds on his watch. He placed a hand on my shoulder, fingers digging into the fabric, painful enough to remind me, but discreet enough to hide from the cameras. "Do not ruin this moment," he whispered, his voice sweet like poison-laced honey. "The whole world is watching you, hero." I wanted to slap his hand away. I wanted to scream at the crowd below that they were applauding a disaster waiting to happen, that what they were about to witness was not a technological revolution, but a bloody gamble. But I stood still. My feet felt nailed to the cold marble floor. I looked down at the crowd. Eager faces, greedy eyes waiting for the show. They knew nothing. They knew nothing about the microfractures in the alloy. They knew nothing about the red warning numbers that Adrian had ordered erased from the safety report. "I will drive," I said, my voice hoarse, sounding foreign to my own ears. "Excellent." Adrian patted my back firmly, then turned to the reporters, his smile beaming again. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice boomed through the expensive speaker system, drowning out the melodious symphony. "Tonight, our legendary chief engineer, Dominic Vance, will personally drive the very first Visionary X." Applause erupted like thunder. Flashbulbs flared frantically again, blinding me. Adrian leaned in towards me one last time, the smile on his lips unchanged, but his eyes cold as ice. "Remember Emma and the kids, Dominic." The threat landed softly like a feather, but its weight was enough to crush my spine. He knew my weakness. He always knew. I swallowed hard, a bitter taste rising in my throat. I stepped down from the podium, heading towards the car parked in the middle of the test runway. Visionary X. It lay there, proud and dangerous, like a predator in hibernation. The glossy black paint reflected the silver moonlight, sharp aerodynamic curves slicing through the air. Beautiful, perfect, and deadly.
I fastened my seatbelt, a dry click echoing. It sounded like a jail cell door locking behind a prisoner. The door lowered, sealing me inside an airtight space, completely separated from the noisy world outside. Sudden silence enveloped me. There was only the sound of my own heart pounding against my ribcage. I looked at the touchscreen dashboard lighting up. The word "ready" appeared in green. A blatant lie.
I placed my hands on the Alcantara-wrapped steering wheel, my fingers trembling slightly. This was where I belonged. But tonight, this could also be where I end. 6 months ago, everything was different. I remember that fateful day as clearly as if it happened yesterday. It was a gray Tuesday afternoon at the research center in Stuttgart. Rain drizzled on the lab window, creating distorted streaks of water. On my computer screen was an X-ray image of the new generation brake caliper. Titanium carbon alloy, the pride of the R&D department. The key to weight reduction and performance enhancement, Adrian had called it in the internal newsletters. But what I saw was not performance. I saw death. At 500 times magnification, cracks as small as hairs appeared vividly. They wove through the crystal structure of the alloy, invisible to the naked eye, but fatal under high pressure. I rubbed my eyes, hoping it was just a display error. I ran the simulation a third time. The result remained unchanged. When the brake disc temperature exceeded 700 degrees Celsius, which would certainly happen during hard braking at speeds over 200 kilometers per hour, the structure would collapse, not wear down, but shatter. I felt a chill run down my spine, cold sweat pooling in my palms. The Visionary X was advertised as a supercar capable of reaching 350 kilometers per hour. If the braking system crumbled at that speed, the driver would no longer be a driver. They would become a meat bullet hurtling inside a metal shell. I printed the report. The pages were still warm in my hands, heavy with responsibility. I stormed straight to Adrian's office, ignoring the secretary trying to stop me. The thick glass door slammed shut behind me, cutting off all sound from outside. Adrian was standing by the window, holding a glass of scotch, looking down at the city like a king surveying his territory. Dominic. He turned around, his expression showing no surprise. I hope you bring good news about the progress. I threw the file onto the polished ebony desk. It slid and stopped right next to his glass of wine. We have to postpone the launch date, I said without preamble. Adrian raised an eyebrow, slowly taking a sip of his drink. Postpone? Are you joking? The braking system is flawed, I growled, trying to stay calm. The new alloy cannot withstand thermal shock. It will shatter if braked hard at high speed. Adrian picked up the file, flipping through a few pages indifferently. He did not read the numbers. He only glanced at the red charts. What is the failure rate? He asked, his voice monotone. In simulation, it is 100% I replied, my voice shaking with anger at his indifference. In reality, just once is enough to kill someone. Adrian sighed, closed the file, and dropped it onto the table. Dominic, you are a good engineer, but you do not understand business. This is not business. I stepped forward, planting both hands on the desk, looking straight into his eyes. This is human life. This is $5 billion of investment. Adrian suddenly raised his voice, slamming his hand on the table, making the wine glass jump. His calm facade cracked, revealing the ruthlessness underneath. The investors are waiting. The stock is at an all-time high.
We cannot stop just because of a few cracks on your computer. So what do you intend to do? I asked, disgust rising in my stomach. Sell these killing machines to the public? Adrian straightened his tie, regaining his terrifying composure. We will fix it in a later update, version 2.0. But for now, the first batch must still roll out. I will not sign off on the acceptance, I declared, my voice firm.
Without my signature, this car is not allowed to leave the factory. Adrian looked at me, a faint smile appearing on his lips. Do you think you are that important, Dominic? He pressed a button on his desk phone. Security, come to my office immediately. He looked at me, his eyes regarding me like an annoying insect. You are fired, Dominic, for sabotage and spreading false rumors affecting the company.
You cannot do that. I stepped back, stunned.
I can do much more than that, he said, stepping closer to me. If you breathe a word to anyone, I will ensure you never find a job in this industry again. I will sue you until you have to sell the shirt off your back. I was dragged out of the building by two massive security guards. My box of personal belongings was thrown onto the wet sidewalk.
I stood there, under the freezing rain, looking up at the glittering glass tower where I had dedicated 10 years of my life. The months that followed were hell. Just as he said, the doors of every car manufacturer slammed in my face. Your profile is too risky, they said. Rumors that I was mentally unstable and jealous of superiors spread across industry forums. My bank account drained. Bills piled up. Emma, my wife, tried to be strong, but I heard her crying softly in the bathroom every night. I became a ghost in my own home, a failure, a man who could not protect his family. And then, 2 days before the launch, Adrian's shiny black Bentley parked in front of my house. He did not come inside. He stood leaning against the car door, waiting for me to walk out. You look terrible, Dominic. He scanned my rumpled clothes.
What do you want? I asked, fists clenching.
I need a driver for the launch ceremony, he said nonchalantly, as if discussing the weather. Journalists are asking questions about the brake failure rumors. They need to see confidence. And who can bring more trust than the chief engineer who designed it himself? You are insane, I scoffed. You know that car is defective. You want me to commit suicide. I want you to prove you are wrong, Adrian said, pulling out a thick envelope. Drive the lead car, Do a few performance laps, smile for the cameras, and the money in here will be yours." He tossed the envelope onto the hood. It slid to stop in front of me. "Enough to pay off the bank debt. Enough to put your kids in private school. Enough to regain your dignity." I looked at the envelope, then at him.
"And if I refuse, then the foreclosure order will be executed next Monday morning," he said, his voice brutally cold. "And I will release fake medical records proving you have paranoid delusions. You will lose everything, Dominic. Wife, kids, house." I stood frozen in the overgrown front yard. Cold wind cut through my thin shirt, but the chill in my heart was colder. He had backed me into a corner.
He was using my life to gamble for his stock price. But Adrian made a mistake. He thought I was a pawn that could be bought with money. He forgot that a good engineer always knows how to find the system's weakness. And the weakness of this system was his arrogance. I picked up the envelope. "I will drive," I said, looking straight into his eyes. Adrian smiled. The smile of a winner. "Smart decision, old friend." He did not know that I was not taking the money to save myself. I took it as a ticket to step on to the final stage. Back in the present, I sat in the cockpit of the Visionary X. The electric motor started with a low hum, vibrating gently under the seat. The dashboard glowed brilliantly, displaying all fake perfect specifications. I looked through the windshield. In the distance, at the end of the runway, Adrian was sitting in the VIP stand, raising a glass of champagne. He was waiting for the performance of his life. I gripped the steering wheel tight, knuckles turning white. "Fine, Adrian, I will give you a performance, but it will not end the way you wrote in the script." I reached for the sport mode start button. The LED light switched from green to blazing red. The red of warning. The red of blood. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes for a second to picture the faces of Emma and the kids. "Forgive me," I whispered into the void. Then I opened my eyes, looking straight at the asphalt road stretching ahead. My right foot stomped hard on the accelerator pedal. The car lunged forward like a wild beast unchained. The Visionary X glided over the smooth asphalt. There was no roar of an internal combustion engine, only the soft hiss of wind gliding over the aerodynamic body and the sound of tires grinding against the road surface, sounding like the whispers of demons. The speed climbed to 80 kilometers per hour, terrifyingly smooth. That was the scariest thing about this car. It lulled you to sleep with fake perfection. It made you believe you were in control of the monster. I steered gently through the first curve. The power steering system responded with millimeter precision. If I hadn't designed it, I would have fallen in love with it. "Great job, Dominic," Adrian's voice echoed in the headset, crackling with static. "Show them how smooth it is on the first lap." I did not answer. I only focused on the numbers dancing on the HUD projected onto the windshield.
100 kilometers per hour. The VIP stand on my right turned into a colorful blur. I could feel thousands of eyes glued to the car. They saw a technological masterpiece. I saw a ticking time bomb counting down. I completed the first lap perfectly. The crowd cheered, applause echoing through the thick soundproof glass. But sweat had begun to seep out on my forehead, dripping into my stinging eyes. "Magnificent," Adrian said, his voice becoming more excited. "Now show them real power. Speed up. Hit the 200 mark. Here it is, the moment of truth." I took a deep breath, the smell of new leather mixing with the smell of my own fear. I pressed the pedal deeper. G-force pinned me tight into the driver's seat, a suffocating embrace. 120 kilometers per hour. The scenery on both sides of the road began to distort with speed. 150 kilometers per hour. The wind noise outside was no longer a hiss. It turned into a scream. 180 kilometers per hour. The steering wheel started to vibrate slightly. Very slightly. A normal driver would think it was due to the uneven road surface. But I knew what it was. It was the material crying for help. The crystal structure of the brake disc was beginning to expand beyond its thermal tolerance limit. "Faster, Dominic!" Adrian screamed in my ear. "Do not disappoint me." I saw the curve ahead. Turn number 7, where the press stand and the soft barrier wall were located. That was the place I had chosen. 200 kilometers per hour. The vibration transmitted from the steering wheel up my arms, running down my spine. The car was warning me. It was begging me to stop. But I could not stop in the normal way. If I braked slowly now, Adrian would have an excuse to blame driving skills. He would say I was cowardly. He would cover everything up. This incident had to be undeniable. It had to be devastating. It had to happen right in front of the public eye. 220 kilometers per hour. Terminal velocity. All my senses became painfully sharp. I saw every dust particle flying through the headlights. I heard my heart beating slowly, paradoxically, to the frantic speed of the car. I remembered Adrian's smile when he threw the envelope of money on the hood. I remembered Emma's desperate eyes looking at the red bills. I remembered the professional conscience I had almost sold cheap. No, not today. Turn number 7 was rushing towards me like a beast opening its mouth. Distance remaining, 200 meters. This was the ideal braking point for a professional race car. "Dominic, brake! You are going too fast!" Adrian's voice in the headset was no longer arrogant. It began to be tinged with panic. He realized I was not slowing down. I still held the gas pedal. 150 meters. I could clearly see the black camera lenses pointing at me from the stands. I could see the horrified looks of the top reporters. 100 meters.
Now or never. I shifted my foot to the brake pedal, and I stomped down with all the strength of a man seeking justice. I stomped down so hard I thought I might snap the metal pedal. But nothing happened. There was no braking force. There was no sound of tires screeching against the road. Only a terrifying slide. The brake pedal was stiff under my foot, like a block of concrete. The warning screen glowed red with the words, "Brake failure." Sirens shrieked piercingly in the cramped cockpit. "Dominic, steer! Steer away!" Adrian screamed in the headset. He wanted me to steer so the car would spin out onto the grass. He wanted an accident that looked like loss of control. He wanted to blame me. But I did not steer. I held the steering wheel tight, aiming the nose of the car straight at the tire barrier wall, right at the foot of the VIP stand. I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to feel it. 50 meters. Time seemed to freeze. I did not see my life flash before my eyes like in the movies. I only saw the naked truth. I saw the carbon ceramic brake disc on the front left wheel shatter. Glowing hot fragments shot out like fireworks, plowing up the asphalt. And then, impact. Boom. The sound was not like metal crashing. It sounded like a bomb exploding. My world flipped upside down. Airbags deployed, slamming into my face, a punch of compressed air. The windshield shattered into millions of diamond dust particles floating in the air. The chassis groaned, buckling to absorb the horrific impact force. The seatbelt dug into my collarbone, leaving a burning welt. The Visionary X spun, flew, and slammed its rear end into the barrier a second time. Darkness descended in a split second. Then light returned, blurry, distorted. My ears were ringing, only hearing a prolonged "ee." Smoke. The acrid smell of burning plastic, rubber, and shattered money. I tried to move my fingers, still feeling I was alive. I unbuckled the seatbelt, falling over to the passenger seat. The driver's side door was jammed tight, deformed into a scrap of iron. I used my legs to kick hard at the passenger door. Once, twice. The door popped open, falling out onto the road. I scrambled out of the wreckage, warm blood flowing from a cut on my forehead, down my left eye, dyeing my vision red. Around me was chaos, screams, footsteps running heavily, cameras clicking continuously like machine guns. I stood up, swaying, holding on to the still hot car frame. The crowd of reporters was rushing over, but was held back by security forces. Adrian. He was running down from the VIP stand, his face drained of blood. He did not look at me. He looked at the car. He looked at his $2 million baby, now just a pile of scrap metal. "Call an ambulance! Turn off the cameras!" he screamed, trying to control the situation in vain. I said nothing. I just limped
towards the front left wheel, where black smoke was billowing. I bent down, picking up a remaining fragment of the brake caliper. It burned through my glove, but I did not let go. I raised it high. Under the stadium floodlights, the alloy fracture appeared clearly, glittering and lethal. Camera lenses immediately zoomed in on my hand, on the undeniable evidence. Adrian rushed towards me, intending to snatch it. "Give it to me, Dominic. You have a concussion." I stepped back, looking straight into his eyes. This time, there was no fear left. "It was not driver error," I said, my voice not loud but enough for the nearby reporters' microphones to catch every word. "It was material failure, the flaw I warned you about 6 months ago." The entire stadium fell silent. Hundreds of pairs of eyes fixed on Adrian. His face turned from pale white to bright red. He opened his mouth to say something, to excuse, to threaten. But then he saw the red light of the camera broadcasting live. He saw the fragment in my hand, and he knew this game was over. I dropped the fragment onto the road. A dry clank echoed, ending the reign of Adrian Sterling. 3 weeks later, I sat in a lawyer's office looking out at the blue New York sky. On the wall-mounted TV, financial news was running a large headline. Sterling Motors stock drops 60% following safety scandal. Former CEO Adrian Sterling faces criminal charges for concealing serious technical faults. The image of Adrian being handcuffed, head bowed, entering a police car appeared on the screen. He no longer had the arrogance of a king. He was just a fraud in an expensive suit. They agreed to all terms. My lawyer pushed a thick file forward. The parent corporation wants this to sink as quickly as possible. This compensation is truly a massive figure, Dominic. I picked up the pen, not to sign a death warrant design, but to sign my freedom. And they want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding internal processes, the lawyer added, voice cautious. "I will sign," I said, putting the pen to paper. "I do not need them to admit publicly anymore. The whole world has seen what needed to be seen." I left the skyscraper with the check in my jacket pocket. The wind blew hard, carrying the chill of approaching winter, but I felt strangely warm. I walked to the parking lot. My new car was waiting there. Not an electric supercar, not an aerodynamic masterpiece. Just an ash-gray SUV from a northern European brand famous for safety. Solid, reliable. I opened the door, sitting in the driver's seat. I looked in the rearview mirror. The scar on my forehead was still red, a long line running across my left eyebrow. It would be a permanent reminder that the price of truth sometimes has to be paid in blood. But when I looked down at the passenger seat, where the photo of Emma and the kids was smiling brightly, I knew it was worth it. I started the engine. The engine sound was smooth, but this time it was the smoothness of safety, not of deception. I drove, merging into the crowded traffic. No one knew the man driving this ordinary car had just brought down $1 billion empire, and I liked it that way.
I did not need to be a hero in the headlines. I just needed to be a father coming home safely for dinner. The traffic light turned green. I pressed the gas and the car rolled forward towards a fresh start.